Okay, so let's get to work on the next step here. Let's move this into its own component. We'll call it number item. So I'm going to make a new component, number item, number button, something like that. And then in here, I need to import React. I'm probably not going to need use state because I'm not going to have any state for each button. The state is controlled up here in numbers list. Numbers list is what manages the state. It's keeping track of all the numbers, the values that matter, and it's simply rendering these components. Well, right now it's not rendering components, but it's rendering an li and a button, but eventually this will be a separate component. So we'll pass down that data as props, which is something I've kind of talked about a lot. We haven't done it much. We have state and a parent, and we pass that data down via props. Okay, so number item is going to import React from React. We'll define our component, const number item equals, and then in here, we'll return something. We know it's going to be an li if we're copying what we had before. Can just move this over, cut that out, put it right there. It's not going to work as is though, right? We've got a couple issues. N doesn't exist. Remove doesn't exist. So let's completely get rid of that click, the on click. We're not going to have that just yet. Let's just get N to display. Well, we don't have N. We don't have state in here from that component. This state exists only in numbers list, but we can pass it down as props. We can pass down the values. So when we're mapping over numbers, I could render a new number item and pass down a particular prop, and we would probably call it maybe num. So I could just put props in here and then display props.num or number. Just whatever makes sense, whatever you think is best. And then export default number item. And now in this component, we need to make sure we import number item from /number item. And now I can map over my numbers, the state here, and create a new number item component. But I do need to pass in that n as the prop using the prop name number. Otherwise, what I end up with right now is I'm still mapping over that list of numbers, but I'm not passing through the number. We just end up with empty buttons. Not what we want. I need to pass in a prop called number. That's how I define this component. So here, I'm going to pass that prop in, number equals, I could hard code it as 1, and now we get a bunch of 1 number buttons, but I don't want to do that. I want it to be n. So I'm looping over this, mapping, and instead of just having the inline LIs here with the button, I'm instead rendering a new component, which does the same thing. It renders an li and a button, but now I've split it up into 2 components, which in a larger app, in a larger situation, helps you keep things clean and stay sane, not lose your mind. It's just nice to make smaller components whenever possible. Okay, so props.number is in there. We pass in number as n. This name is totally up to us. We just need to be consistent. Now we end up with the correct values. But how am I going to remove something? This is really the meat of this video. The whole reason I even went about creating these components was to demonstrate this. I have a method up here, or a function called remove. It was easy when I was rendering an li in here or a button. I could set the on click right here, and there was no problem. But now I have this extra layer between us. There's a barrier. Number item is a separate function. It doesn't have access to remove. So how am I going to make this work? Well, time for some slides. What we're going to do is take our parent component that has this remove function. We've already defined it. And we're going to pass it down as a prop to the child component. So we're going to pass down that remove function and say, hey, here is a function for you. I define it. It's my function. All right, I'm the parent, but you can have it, and you can call it if needed. Then the child component can have its own onClick, and it can invoke that prop. Whatever that prop is, it will hold a function, and it's just going to call that function. And then that will result in doing something in the parent function. So whatever logic is here, it's just going to run. It's originating, it's being invoked from a different component, but it's still the same function, and it's going to update the state. It has access to set numbers, It's part of this component, so we're just passing down a reference to this function. Really common pattern. Pass down data as props, like number, but we can also pass down functions. So here's what that would look like, or one possible option. We can pass down the remove function as a prop, name it whatever you want, we can call it remove. So let's do that now, right here. Every number item component will be passed a prop called remove. Now remove is this function here. Now inside of my number item.js, I could console.log props if I wanted to. Over here we can see the first number item has a prop, or two props, number is 2, and remove is a function with the name of remove, and remove is a function as you can see there. So in here we can call remove. We'll call it when you click on something, but it's not as simple as just calling remove as is. We still need to pass in the correct number. So what I would probably do is destructure. What do we need from props? Well, we want number, and we want that remove function. So now I don't have to reference props anymore. I can just have number here. Easy enough. Now the pattern that I'm going to introduce here is to define a new function. We could call this handle click. You can call this handle remove. You could call it whatever you want, but it's kind of conventional to do handle something. And I'll talk more about this. Let's go with handle remove. And handle remove is going to call this remove function that was passed down. It's a way of calling the parent's function, and we need to pass in the correct number. So whatever number was passed in, take that remove function and pass the number in. So it's kind of this extra layer of abstraction. Hopefully you can piece it all together. We pass down a number, let's say 5. We pass down remove. Every copy, every component gets the same remove. Well, every number item, at least in this one numbers list, gets the same remove. Pass down that number, let's say it's 7. So when this component is rendered, we make this function called handle remove, which calls remove with 7. Then all we need to do here is execute handle remove when you click. So on click equals handle remove. And now this function will run, and that should hopefully call remove, which is passed down, pass in the correct number. Let's see what happens. I click 2. Hey, it's gone. 18, gone. 7, 5, 11, 12. Pretty snazzy. Kind of. Okay. So there's a couple things that we have to talk about how this all works. I skipped over this point here, this bottom one there. When we set the state in the parent, that is going to cause a re-render. And that's going to result in our number items here all being re-rendered as well. And that's why something has been removed. It's no longer showing up. We remove it from the state, and then we're using state to figure out what to display. So if state is now missing 7, if numbers doesn't have 7 or 12, then we're not going to make that number item, which is how it disappears. It goes away. So to walk through this pattern one more time, we have our function remove. It accepts a number, and it is going to update the state to remove that number. It's actually making a new array that doesn't contain the number. It's not actually changing the original array, but it has the effect of setting the state with an array that is missing whatever number was passed in. Then we loop over all those numbers. We render a number item component. We tell each number item what number it should display. What is your n? And we give it this remove function, 2 props. Then inside of number item, we can render the number, and we can call handle remove, which is a function we've defined. And handle remove simply calls remove and passes in that number. So we couldn't just do this. We can't just call remove as is. And the reason for that is that we need to pass in the number. We need to pass in the argument. What number are we removing? This will just invoke remove with no number. It will pass the event object in actually as the default argument, thanks to the way that events work. So handle remove is our way of calling remove with a particular number. And then whenever that parent state changes, which is exactly what's happening, we're calling a function defined in the parent. That parent is going to have some state that's changed. That then causes a re-render of all of this, which means each number item is re-rendered, and the one that no longer exists, the number that's no longer in state, is not going to be rendered. It's gone. So it's kind of a weird flow. Define a function, pass it down. We call that function down here. It is defined up top in the parent. That results in some change, which is going to cause a re-render, and I'm repeating myself. Okay. This is something you'll see a lot in React, and if you're struggling with it still, don't worry. You're going to get a lot more practice. You'll get a lot of practice on the exercises and projects, but try and walk through it. Try and explain it to yourself or to someone else near you if you need it. Talk to your mentor, talk to your rubber ducky at home, and just try and walk through the steps. All right, so that is a really common flow of data in React, passing functions from one component down as a prop to child components.